The month of May has come to an end, so that means it's time for another garden update. So a lot has happened with regards to my plants and my garden since my last update, and I'm gonna be filling you in on all of that today. But before we get started, if you do happen to be new here, let me introduce myself. My name is Sarah. I'm a dietitian. My garden is in Virginia Zone 7, and on this channel I talk about food and nutrition stuff, and then during the growing season I also give you updates on my garden and all of my garden produce. So if you're into that sort of thing, then make sure that you subscribe. So I thought that we could go over kind of some of the stuff that's been going on, and then I will show you around the garden and show you the progress that I've made. So if you missed the last update, I will link that for you so you can kind of get a little bit more background on what was going on back then if you want to get all the details. But I was having a lot of trouble with my plants. So the soil that I ended up purchasing, I got it from Walmart. It was not good stuff. My peppers and my tomatoes, they all germinated and then they were not growing. And I realized like after a couple weeks that they were way smaller than they should have been and that we were in disaster territory. And so what I ended up doing is I took all of my tomatoes and I got new soil and I transplanted them into that, hoping that that would help. It didn't help and they still would not grow. The new stuff I got, I think it was better than the old stuff, but it still wasn't the best. So after that happened, I decided I was gonna have to get some really good soil. I got some stuff that I have purchased in the past. It's from Fox Farm and it's called Ocean Forest. It's a little bit pricey, but it is high quality stuff, and I found a garden center nearby that actually sold it, so I was able to get it for a pretty reasonable price and support a local business. So I went there and got it, and I ended up restarting all of my tomatoes 3 weeks after I had started them the first time, and transplanting all of my peppers because I had never transplanted them in the first place because I kind of started with the tomatoes, so I thought they could handle the one transplant, but I didn't think the tomatoes were going to be able to handle 2 transplants, so I just decided to start all of those fresh. And I'm not gonna lie, it was really frustrating. I was talking to my husband Jason about it when it was all going on, and I was like, oh, this is so annoying, like this is gonna put everything in the garden so behind. But it's also kind of part of the gardening process. You know, I've never had anything happen like that with the soil before, of just getting something that was so terrible that stuff just wouldn't grow in it. So it was a new learning experience. I know what not to get now, and you know, I'll take that information with me and use it moving forward. And yeah, the tomatoes and the peppers, they're gonna be a little bit later than what I would like, but we're still gonna get lots of tomatoes and peppers. It's not a big deal. It was just a minor setback, and once I kind of got my head back in the game, and now that I've got everything out in the garden, I'm feeling a lot better about the whole situation. So with that all said, I'm gonna take you around the garden now, showing some of the spring plantings that are actually producing and look really nice right now, and then also show you the tomatoes and peppers and other things that I've put in that will be growing up here in the next few weeks and months. So yes, the first thing we can talk about is this mint bed. I had pulled all this back to clear out the path, and it has just taken over again, and I have had other things to do in the garden that have been priority. So this has been going just wild, and I really need to come out here and try to tame it a little bit. In the future, I think I will definitely try to keep my mint more contained in future gardens, but for right now, this works fine, and I'll just get to it whenever I get to it. Moving to the bed behind it, you'll remember that I had planted some carrots here. I did that cardboard thing. It did help keep the soil moist, but still, I did not get great germination on the carrots. Maybe a couple came up, but really not much of anything. So that's frustrating. I mean, maybe if we really look through here, we'd be able to find something now. As you can see, a bunch of grass has just come up in it. So I don't know. I haven't had luck with carrots in the past. We also have more weeds growing over here, these trees that like to come up. I need to pull that up. But like I said, this half of the garden has been getting a little less attention because of all the tomato stuff. So I don't know if I'll do carrots again. I'm just not really sure. I mean, I don't want to say that I'll never do it, because even looking down, I can see that there are maybe like 3 or 4 that have come up. They just have very little leaves, so I don't know if they'll become anything. And you know, I have hopefully a lot of gardening years ahead of me, so I'd like to continue experimenting, and it does seem really cool to see other people, all the carrots they get. But I just haven't had great success with it, and it seems like a lot of effort to get it to do anything. And carrots are also pretty cheap at the grocery store, so part of me feels like I'd rather put my energy into growing other things that I enjoy more and that I find more interesting and that aren't such a struggle, like the tomatoes and the peppers and a lot of the other things that I grow. So it's not that I'm never going to do it again, but they're definitely not at the top of my list of things that I'm really worried about growing. Now we can move over to leafy green vegetables. We have some Mizuna growing here, and I just kind of sowed this really thick and just let it grow up, and then we can, you know, break these leaves off for salads and stir fries and stuff like that. So that is looking really nice. I also planted a another type of Mizuna. Over here you can also see the mint has made its way all the way back here to this bed. This is called Ruby Streaks, and it's kind of this frilly looking Mizuna. I don't know, it's pretty fun. I like the way it's looking, so we've got some of that coming up too. The Japanese giant red mustard is also looking great. This is the type of plant that, you know, you're supposed to plant like, I don't know, maybe 6 in this row and they get really big. I just planted them really thickly and I'm just kind of letting them go and coming through and picking out leaves. I'm gonna be using this for a stir fry this week actually, so I'm really excited. And you know, we can use some of the smaller ones in lettuce. So far we've just been kind of grabbing leaves and snacking, but now that we've got a nice amount, I'm gonna start picking through this. And then we also have like a volunteer dill right there that's coming up from last year. Here's another one over here, so I'm kind of letting those do their thing. And then we've got some of this stuff coming up. This is supposed to be edible. Someone at my church brought some in one time and said they just let it go in their garden. I do a combination of letting it go and picking it, you know, pulling it out. But the thing is like, I never really end up eating it. I'm just kind of like, let it grow, and I'm like, oh, that's edible, we should just let it grow, and then it just gets huge and it's annoying. So I should probably just know myself and just go ahead and pull it out, because I probably won't ever end up eating it for whatever reason, because I just never do. Moving over to the radish bed, this is what's left. It was all full of radishes. We did a big harvest the other day. I'll insert a picture of that here so you can see a little bit. This is just a portion of that harvest. But I had to pull a lot of it out because 1, they were all grown up, but 2, anything that wasn't, I had to move out of the way for the peppers and the tomatoes. And it's really getting to that time that for even some of these that haven't developed bulbs yet, like they're starting to bolt, they're just getting really leafy. So probably end up pulling all of these out because I just think it's getting too hot probably, and they're not really going to be able to produce any roots anyways. Back here in the wild berry patch corner of the garden, the black raspberries are looking great. I'm going to come out here later today and do a nice big harvest, maybe in the evening once it's a little bit cooler. But look, we've got a lot of these coming on. It's really exciting. And again, these are wild berries, so we just transplanted these over here a few years ago, and they just keep expanding and growing, and this is going to be the biggest harvest of these that we've ever gotten. So I'm really excited, and you can see we've got lots of other berries on here. These are the first ones to ripen, and then next will come the wild raspberries, and then usually the blackberries after that, so they kind of come one after the other. So I'm excited when I do harvest these to see how many we get. And the couple that we have tasted so far when we've been out here working have been quite delicious. And as far as other things that I had mentioned in the previous video, or at least that I think I probably mentioned, I did try to start some lettuce in containers to transplant in, but I guess my seeds were too old. Only a couple germinated, and then we had one hot day and they were just dead, and it was just bad. So none of that happened. So it is less leafy greens than I was hoping for, but we do still have some things that are doing quite well, as you can see. But with all that said, that kind of covers the stuff that you were aware of. Let's get into the stuff that has been put out here since my last update, the things that are just getting started. So first, let's just do an overview of the garden. As you can see, you know, we've gotten the weeds out, everything's looking nice. There's my tripod there from when I was talking to you earlier. It's just all cleared out. We don't have the weeds everywhere, and then we have a few extra plants hanging out here. But here on the front, the first thing you'll see is we have our 2 trellises for pole beans. This is the second year we've used this. We had built these trellises to go vertically, like flip it this way, up on the other side in the past, but they were way too wobbly. They weren't great. So last year we repurposed them, turned them over on their sides, and they've been excellent. So we've got this concrete wire here, and then we have that attached with zip ties to this frame of PVC, and then we have rebar in the ground, and then the pipe kind of slides over that, and that's what keeps it stable. And then the ends of the concrete wire also spike down into the ground. And so this has worked great last year. We've got 2 of them, and we've got a couple different types of beans planted here. I just planted these. We're supposed to get a nice rain this evening, fingers crossed. So hopefully I don't have to come out here and water, but hopefully these will be coming up over the next week or so. Also, I've got some zinnias planted here. You know, right now we're at the time of year where there isn't too much to see in terms of a lot of this stuff because we're still waiting for it to come up, but here soon, we should have a lot going on over here. And then in terms of tomatoes and peppers, we just have them everywhere. You can see all of these are tomatoes with our wire cages that we have made in the past. They're super sturdy and we love them. And then, you know, more tomatoes back here with a row of jalapenos. We have more tomatoes back here with a row of a different kind of jalapeno. More tomatoes over here. This one's a whole pepper bed. So we have all kinds of stuff going on. And I'm not gonna go through and show you every tomato and pepper plant in the garden and tell you what everything is, because honestly, I don't know how entertaining that would be. There's a lot of plants out here. I think the grand total is around 50 tomato plants in the ground and around 40 pepper plants in the ground. And within those, we have so many different varieties. I can't even name them all off the top of my head. I will put a list in the description of the video if you want to see all the varieties that I'm growing, so you can get kind of more of a full idea. And of course, as the season goes on, once things are actually producing and you can actually see the types of tomatoes, then we'll be talking a lot more about that kind of stuff. But right now it's like they all kind of just look the same, so I can tell you they're different stuff, but it really doesn't mean much of anything, I don't feel like right now. As far as ones that I am really excited about, a few right off the top of my head, I really am excited about the Sun Golds. It's my first year growing those. Those are a hybrid tomato, and that's the first hybrid tomato I've actually ever grown. Up until this point, I've done all heirlooms, but I've tried Sun Golds through CSAs in the past and at farmers markets. I just love them. They're delicious. They're also supposed to be really productive, so I've put a lot of those in the garden this year. I'm also excited for Mortgage Lifter. That I think is also kind of one of the more common ones that people grow. That's an heirloom. It's a nice red beefsteak tomato, supposed to taste good, be very productive, so I'm excited to see how that does. We also have a lot of the Wild Boar Farms tomatoes, so a couple new ones for us this year are Brad's Atomic Grape, which is a grape tomato that has just this kind of rainbow of colors. We're also growing Dark Galaxy tomatoes, which look like they have like a galaxy print all over them, just purples and reds and speckles and all this kind of stuff. So those are ones that I'm really looking forward to, but honestly, I'm looking forward to all of them. I love tomatoes. They're one of my they are probably my favorite food, and one of my favorite things about gardening is that I can grow so many different varieties with different flavors and colors and shapes and sizes, way more than I could get at my farmer's market or at the grocery store. And there's still more stuff happening that needs to get in the ground. I mean, getting all of these tomatoes and peppers in was definitely a huge feat, but me and Jason, we worked together many hours and we were able to get it all done, but there is still some stuff left to do. So I've got some cucumbers started here that are coming up, and I'll be putting those in soon. This is another tray I started the other day. There's a few more things in here, some different flowers. The basil is also in here. I need to water this because it was supposed to be raining all day today, and that has not been happening, so I am going to give this some water. But you know, we've got all the basil, which I would like to have done by now, but it just hasn't happened, and we just kind of roll with things as they go. So that stuff will be going in soon too. And if you're curious about extra plants, I try to plan pretty tightly and start, you know, some extras, because not everything's going to germinate, but I also don't want to have more plants than I have room for or can handle. And these are the extras this year. So we have just 5 extra pepper plants, and then I don't know, maybe like 10 extra tomatoes, 12 extra tomatoes. So I might try to find room for some of these in the garden, you know, kind of squeeze them in spaces where I was going to do something else or where we have a little bit more room. I'll also probably be giving some of these away. I know my mother-in-law wants some of these, so I'm going to be giving some of those to her. And then, you know, like I said, depending on how many she wants and how many we put in the garden, that might be it, or, you know, we'll figure out something to do with them. They're not going to go to waste. But as you can see, I try not to have too much extra, but I also don't mind having some extra because we can usually find place for a couple more plants, and there are also people in our life who wouldn't mind having some of the plants if we do end up having some extra ones. So that's what's happening in the garden right now. Definitely stick around on the channel, like I said, if you want to see more updates. I'll be doing updates on the garden throughout the season, but I'm also going to be adding in some new videos this year, doing some harvest videos and maybe doing some roundups of different types of plants, like all my tomatoes, or I don't know. I want to do some more fun things with the garden stuff. So we're gonna play around with some of that this summer, and I'm really excited for that. And I'm just getting really pumped, y'all, for what's gonna happen out here, because there's so much potential right now. We've got all these plants in the ground, and I just can't wait to see how everything does this year, what we're able to get out of everything, and just, you know, what our results are gonna be. So with that said, I would love to hear in the comments how your garden is doing, whether you're just on a windowsill or you have my kind of setup, or maybe even something bigger than what I have. I would love to hear what you're growing, how plants are doing. Are you behind the ball like I am a little bit this year? Totally okay, you know, we can make it work. And if you happen to be new here and you want more healthy eating tips and nutrition info and videos like this one, then make sure that you subscribe, because eating healthy and living a healthy lifestyle really doesn't have to be complicated, and I want to show you how to do it. And if you want to watch some more videos, I have a couple linked over here that you might like. Thanks for watching. I hope you're having a great day, and I'll talk to you next time.